All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Melanin Muses podcast. I'm Cleo.
And I'm Callie.
Today, we are going to talk about something that has been not just but that has been really prevalent in the kind of nerdy realm lately with a certain movie that y'all should know. Do you want to kind of fill them in on that, Callie?
Oh boy. So you guys know that movie Shang-Chi that just came out? The newest Marvel movie that's sweeping the nation. It's wonderful. It's amazing. I have yet to see it, but I plan to. But the biggest controversy that comes from this movie currently is the actress Awkwafina. Now, if you've been paying attention to the news lately, Awkwafina is coming under fire by sources such as Black Twitter for her use of the Blaccent. It is controversial. Simply because, for those of you who don't know, a Blaccent is an exaggerated accent that people of non-Black backgrounds add as a way of adding like some flavor or personality to how they present. So it's normally very exaggerated in what they believe Black inner city youth sounds like.
Yo, straight up, let's stand in together. Yo, but Chama low-key loves that, you know.
Oh boy. So what do you think about this? What do you think?
That's my answer. No, I feel like Blaccent has just been such a part of like just part of life ever, especially in the 90s. You know what I mean? I feel like especially from our generation, we kind of grew up with that in a sense. Like to me, honestly, like I've heard it, but it never really registered until like they brought it up with the Awkwafina thing that's going on, because I would hear people all the time like growing up like having a certain type of accent in it, or like it used to be like the butt of a lot of jokes, you know, especially in movies back in the day. So it never really hit that this isn't appropriate for them to be doing, because you know, back when we were younger, the movies we had, they weren't politically correct. They weren't like, oh no, we got to be sensitive on this topic. They're like, no, we're going to be doing like the Asian accent, or especially there's this one movie that they really called out. They actually had a white man playing an Asian man, but they like taped his eyes back. You know what I'm talking about?
Tiffany's.
Yes. So there is like a lot of stuff like that. So I think, at least from my perspective, a lot of us were desensitized to really what it was back in the day. But now, since we're being more made more aware of certain things that actually aren't okay, it's almost like we were gaslighted into thinking it was okay. But now more people are recognizing, actually, no, this is not okay. You shouldn't be doing that. Almost the same as like a non-person of color saying the N-word just because it's in the song. You know, that's a whole nother debate for another day. But with this whole Blaccent thing, I think the other construct of it is that people are mistaking code switching for Blaccent. And like, well, you can talk like that with this person, but you don't do it with that person. So why can't I just do it? Like, because there's a big difference between code switching for people of color versus you just imitating an accent that's associated with us and associated with being unintelligent when we do it, but considered cool when you do it. So I think that it's nice that this is being brought to light, but it's also troubling, considering how she handled it, if you want to enlighten us about that.
I would say the lack of handling that occurred during the interview. I'll see if I can find the video to link in the description so other people can see what we're talking about. But more specifically, during one of her interviews for the new movie, Shang-Chi, she was asked about how she was handling people's accusation of her using a Blaccent or building her career off of the use of a Blaccent in the characters she chooses. And her response was limited. to say the least. She mentioned that this is a multifaceted issue that has many layers. In my opinion, that's a very political answer, in that you didn't really answer the question. You just stated that there was more to discuss, but you didn't give your personal opinion. You didn't defend your use of the Blaccent or apologize for it. I'm specifically referencing a character she played in the movie Crazy Rich Asians.
No, chickens are bitches, dude.
And I'm not a chicken.
You're not a chicken. You gonna roll up to that wedding, you gonna be like, bok bok, bitch.
Bok bok, bitch.
Chickens are bitches.
And mind you, while she's doing this, she's shaking her finger, she's wagging her hands, she's moving her head back and forth like a chicken. And it's supposed to emulate, I guess, toughness or, just being aggressive. And that's normally how Black women are perceived in the media or in general social circles. Like, it was very easy to identify that she was trying to emulate a Black woman or how people perceive Black women to be, which I find offensive as a Black woman, because that's not something that I do. That's not something that I associate myself with. And that's not how I'd like to be portrayed. But when people hear that, they immediately assume, oh, dang, yeah, I know what that came from. It's like, no, that's not where that comes from. But to get back to the issue, her response when she uses this Blaccent as a way of kind of uplifting her career, there was no ownership in that answer. It was more of a deflection. And I'm interested to see how this plays out moving forward, because there has to be some level of accountability here when your entire career is built off of an accent that other groups are demonized for.
So my question is, because I watched the interview too, and it just made me shake my head. And I'm like, oh, dear honey, you're just digging yourself a grave, aren't you? Especially considering your entire career is dependent upon the people who view your content. And I think that's a lot of things. Like, I know, kind of a side note, I saw a quote from Johnny Depp recently. He was talking about cancel culture and how strong it is, even if you didn't do anything wrong. If even there's a speculation of one person saying something about you, that could be the end to your entire livelihood. And I feel that perhaps that's not something she quite understands yet, especially considering from what I've heard and what I've read in a couple places, the Black community plays a really big part in the consumerism, especially in terms of media, and once Black Twitter gets a hold of you, oh dear God, I pray for you. They will drag you so hard, and it makes me giggle. But my question is, do you think she feels any remorse? Because when I was watching the interview and just looking at her body language, looking how she reacted when the interviewer approached her about it, she seemed to shut down immediately into a defensive mode of almost, I didn't do anything wrong, so I don't know why you're asking, and almost seem mad that it was brought to light.
I'm open to the conversation. I think it, it really is something that I think is a little bit multifaceted and layered. And so, yeah.
Do you think she feels any shame for it? Or do you think she's just embarrassed that it was brought out, or that she was called out for it? Because in contrast, her, what's his name? Simu, the main actor in the new movie, someone brought to light one of his old tweets, and he was very misogynistic and it was pretty gross, but he actually went and he addressed it, and he's just like, hey, listen, that was when I was young, I was dumb, I was angry, and I was going through a lot of things, and I'm sure if you dig back far enough, you can find even worse things that I said, but I hope that you can understand that people can grow and change and learn and mature. So I'm not proud of that essentially, but I have grown and I have become a better person since those tweets or since those posts have been made. So he actually took ownership. But what do you think could possibly be like going on from her? Do you think she's just trying to protect herself? Or do you legit think that she's ashamed of it and just doesn't know how to approach it without being attacked? Or like, what do you think?
I think that it was a combination of different feelings that she was feeling. Admittedly, the interview was supposed to be for the new movie that she was in, not necessarily addressing her past career endeavors. So I can understand how that question would catch someone off guard, but I also know that she doesn't exist in a vacuum, so I'm sure she's been aware of the tweets that have been circulating and her name being in the media for this specific reason. With that said, I think that her statement was meant to be incredibly just neutral so that it can't be quoted in a specific context and it can't be used against her. But unfortunately, the lack of ownership is incriminating, in my opinion, because like you said, the co-star, he was able to own up when called out on past behavior, whereas she did not do the same thing. Also, speaking on cancel culture, if you guys know, I have a t-shirt that says, instead of cancel culture, it says crossed out on the top, council culture. And I got that shirt from a group called Head Nerds in Charge. It's a prominent group in the cosplay community. If you get a chance, check them out. They are amazing. I'm not a fan of cancel culture simply because I believe everyone has an opportunity to grow and change, just as the gentleman you mentioned was able to do. And he's right. If you dig back far enough, I'm sure you can find content that's incriminating. But the thing about being a human being is you grow and change every day. I'm a firm believer that if you aren't perpetuating those same beliefs today or haven't done like multiple incriminating things over the course of a 10-year period, if you're not doing it today and you've shown an improvement in your public persona, I believe that you shouldn't be canceled because you've grown and you've changed and you've accounted for your past behaviors. You're a person, you're a human. Now, as for Awkwafina, she has yet to display that same level of humility. And so I reserve judgment as far as how her career should be. Now, also, she built her entire career off of this persona. To kind of give that a revamp would essentially be canceling her career. So, I mean, I feel like there's a lot that needs to be discussed in that realm.
And do you think that like a part of it, because I know Disney is a major powerhouse and they are very, very strict in terms of how their brand is portrayed, especially well, just in general, like even down to their parks, you can't down to the parks, down to being a part of their internship program. Apparently the screening process is so strict. Like they monitor your social media accounts very strictly. And for one little thing, you can be kicked out. I know a couple friends of mine were just like, yeah, they tried to go and apply for Disney and it was just so strict. They're like, nah, fam, I'm good. So do you think that can also play a part of it, like being part of such a really big company who just cuts you for like the littlest thing? Like, do you think that takes another role in how she responded to that? Or do you think it's overall just ignorance?
I'd like to give her more credit than that. So I'll say that yes, Disney may have a large role in how she portrays herself in the public eye moving forward, now that she's more or less been accepted as part of the Disney realm for this film. Image is incredibly important, like you were saying, for Disney, and they do not tolerate anything that could jeopardize their reputation. Now, Disney itself is a whole nother conversation, which I'm sure we'll get to at a different time. But yes, I believe that response was, again, to be more neutral than it was to be accountable.
What do you think that Aquafina, like if she actually does feel remorse for what she did, if she can understand, like, because I think that on another hand, maybe I'm empathizing too much, but trying to see it from a just the devil's advocate perspective. Do you think, because that really is embarrassing if you think about it, like you made your whole career based off of making fun of other people. And especially if you are trying to grow as a person and you look back, you ever have secondhand embarrassment or embarrassment for the second time for stuff you did like 10 years ago?
Goodness.
I get that all the time. I think randomly and like, oh, shizzle, why did I do that? But oh, Nikki, why? Or you see like Facebook, like you see Facebook memories and stuff pops up and you're like, oh hell no, delete, erase all evidence. I'm sure we all have those moments. And I feel like if I'm playing devil's advocate, if I was her and I built my career off of making, let's say if I made fun of like the stereotypical Asian accent, that would be incredibly embarrassing to look back and be like, how ignorant was I to do something so disrespectful to not only a person, but an entire community. And now I am in a position where everyone knows my face, everyone knows my name. And now I would have to own up to this. And that's a really almost feels like a very humbling situation, but I can't imagine the fear, especially doing that in front of the world. But on the same token, what ticked me off is in another article I read, she was trying to advocate so much about representing the Asian community properly and turning down roles that put her in a compromising position that would make fun of the Asian community. So it kind of like, I'm trying to empathize with her, but at the same time, it's hypocritical of her to say like, oh, well, I'm advocating for the Asian community, but it's okay to screw over the Black community because I can just make money off of them. But this is my people, so I have to treat them with respect. Like, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that because it's one thing to ride for your group. I understand that completely because most people in our society consider, especially if you're a person of color, you become the singular representation of your group in any given situation where your group is not, I guess, widely accessible. So I can understand as an Asian woman, especially someone trying to move away from like Asian stereotypes and portrayals in the media. Asian women are more than just what people make them out to be. They're individuals, they are people, and they have their own thoughts and opinions about things. They're not what stereotypes are being portrayed as. I completely empathize with that sentiment. And at the same time, I feel slighted when I hear that you're going to protect the image of your group, but actively participate in the degradation of another group by building your career off of those stereotypes. It's very confusing, it's very contradictory, and it does lead me to question what her perspective is when it comes to that, because these characters that she plays or has become famous for are in the realm of comedy. So to me, and in her interview that you were referencing, she said that she won't engage in minstreling. The way she used that term was incorrect, in that minstrel shows were named exclusively for Black portrayals, not for other groups. You become a minstrel, especially in minstrel shows back in like the 19th century, 18th, 19th century. They were meant as active caricatures of Black people. So when you're saying that you won't be a minstrel, that's not appropriate when you're discussing other groups. It is for Black culture specifically, but you are minstreling. Maybe not in blackface, but in essence. And that's somehow still acceptable today. So I feel that's why it's so important to draw attention to this, because just because you're not walking around in blackface and actively, speaking in, I don't know, broken Southern slave language, you're still perpetuating a stereotype that this is how Black people are portrayed. And because you're doing it as a person of non-Black descent, it's acceptable for some reason. Yeah, so those are my thoughts.
I totally agree with you in terms of like perpetuating the cycle and perpetuating the stereotypes, because especially for other people of color, if they see someone who looks like them who are making fun of Black people, just say that as example, they're going to be taught essentially that this is okay. And I can say that from experience here in Korea. Like I've had people like approach me like before COVID, like if I was in the bar just eating food. My friends are drinking, I don't drink, but I'm just sitting there eating food, listening to the music, and I have dudes who would come up and like, y'all can't see me. Like if you go to the YouTube channel, you can see us having this conversation, so you can see what I'm talking about. But they be going like this, like trying to like dance to me, like hey, and I'm just like, so it's kind of like the stereotype, if I can describe this move, is like when you put your arms up like you're trying to DJ and be like gangsta and stuff like that. And there's the Korean men trying to emulate stereotypically Black body language that's deemed cool to approach me, in a sense of, oh, this is a Black person, I can't just walk up and say hi. I have to accentuate a particular behavior in order to approach and connect with this person. And other people think it's okay, or be like, yo, what's up? I like rap too. Like people, they see others emulating this who look like them, like, oh, well, they said it to this person, so I can say it. There's been a couple of movies, I can't think of them at the top of my head, but like there is a token, let's say the token white person who was quote unquote accepted in the Black community group, that they have, oh, I have Black friends, and those quote unquote Black friends give that person the Black card, which is a whole nother conversation of, oh, you're one of us, so you can say the N-word around us. But then that person goes and says the N-word, but then now that gives other white people that may be in their group and they overhear that, it's like, oh, well, this white person said it, so why can't I say it? So I think that just kind of, it influences others, even if you don't actively think about it. And I that's where I'm assuming that Awkwafina is not realizing, is that she's trying to advocate for her community, but she's also teaching her community that, oh, it's okay to disrespect others who are minorities. It's okay to make fun of this speech because it just makes you money, but you have to be offended if someone does it for us. I don't know, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating because we already have enough stereotypes against us. But no, yeah, this whole situation, I feel like she needs to own up to it. And for those of you who do have that moment of like Blaccent to think that everything is cool, rethink about it. Because how would you feel if someone made fun of you? It doesn't feel good.
It's offensive. It's because first off, you don't know the first thing about the person.
Yeah.
And you're boiling their entire identity down to what you believe they are. You're not taking the time to get to know them as an individual, and it's dehumanizing.
Yeah, exactly. See, this is why we have Callie. She's the voice of reason and articulating everything and intellectual wording. See, I can't even English. This is why we have Callie here, because I'm struggling, y'all.
Ma'am, you're switching between two languages, so you get a pass.
Thank you. And the last point I think we can make about this, instead of like beating a dead horse, is like going forward, if there are people who have like, they felt the need to adopt that Blaccent, like understanding, like we can talk about code switching another time, because we don't want this to go too long, because that could be a whole nother hour. But there's just a basic definition. Code switching is what we do to survive, and doing a Blaccent or a fake accent is disrespectful and not okay. So we will break that down in another episode to make sure we clarify it. But going forward, what can those people who tend to feel the need to emulate accents, whether it's a Blaccent, whether it's like an Asian accent, whether it's whatever accent it is, in a disrespectful manner, what can they do going forward in order to not only just stop it, but atone for, okay, you know what, that wasn't okay. Like Aquafina, going forward, what do you think she could do to potentially just like actually be better?
Honestly, I would like for her to have a genuine conversation with people. I'm not sure who, to be honest. I don't think she has anyone specific to answer for or to, but I'd like to see from her some humility. Explain your reasoning for deciding to use these specific characters and this specific portrayal of a character. And honestly, just own up to it. People are offended, people have been hurt, and you're perpetuating a negative message. Please do better. Just please do better. I mean, if the most extreme thing is change your persona, you've gained enough clout that you can create something new and more positive. I have high hopes. I think you can do it. And you know what? I'm willing to support you in the change of identity. But we have to see a little bit of humility here and ownership for what's been done.
100%. So basically, guys, own up to the nonsense and make a change. Own up and make a change and apologize. And be like, listen, you know what? I was young, I was dumb, I was still learning, and I know that wasn't appropriate. Going forward, we're not going to do that anymore. I'm sorry. Like that's it.
Simple.
Very, very simple. On that note, guys, thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Melanin Muses podcast. We had such a great time. We always really, really appreciate you tuning in to see us and listen to us, whichever or both. So if you like what you heard, it does not have to end here. Remember, please to subscribe and follow us on any of the platforms that you listen to your podcast, as well as check out our YouTube channel, because in that way you can see our gorgeous faces and the random expressions and nonsense that we do here on our channel. So on that note, this is Cleo.
And this is Callie.
We'll see you next time, guys. See you later. Bye.
Bye.